This simply shouldn't exist in our reality. We're used to thinking that time flows in only one direction for all objects. Scientists have established a precise age scale for everything that exists in this infinite space. According to our most accurate maps, the universe was born about 14 billion years ago. But suddenly, we discovered an object that brazenly violates this fundamental law of life. This star claims to be older than time and space itself. Astronomers have studied the night sky for decades, believing they understood the rules of the game. Every star in our galaxy was supposed to fit into the general chronology of the universe's development. We expected to see the gradual aging of matter from the moment of the Big Bang to the present day. Instead, instruments detected an anomaly that literally shatters all of modern physics. The data show that one specific object existed even before the first matter ignited. It looks like a systemic error in the very code of our universe. Imagine finding a coin in a sandbox that was minted long before the sand appeared. That is exactly how researchers felt when they first pointed their telescopes at this target. The object, codenamed HD 140283, has become a major headache for theorists. It is located relatively close to us, in our cosmic neighborhood. Each new verification only confirmed the initial alarming calculation. We were faced with a fact that could not simply be ignored or dismissed as interference. Hidden in the constellation Libra is a dim speck of light that holds the most terrifying secret of the cosmos. This star is known to the scientific world as Methuselah, named after the famous biblical long liver. If you look at it through a telescope, it appears to be a completely ordinary and unremarkable dot among thousands of others. You would never pay it much attention without a hint from an experienced astronomer. But behind this very modest and unassuming shell lies an age that is absolutely beyond the comprehension of the average person. Scientists pointed their instruments at it and conducted the very first thorough measurements of its luminosity parameters. The result of these complex calculations revealed a truly shocking figure: 14.5 billion years. To someone far removed from advanced science, this is just another huge number with a lot of zeros. But for any physicist, it means the collapse of all foundations, because it is significantly greater than the age of our entire vast universe. It turns out that this particular object emerged from the void before the very beginning of time. This incredible phenomenon forced scientists to instantly re-evaluate the fundamental principles of modern astrophysics. Initially, many authoritative researchers simply could not physically believe in the reality of the terrifying figures they had obtained. They were absolutely certain that some trivial error had occurred in the complex mathematical calculations of the distance. Or they blamed a sudden hidden malfunction in the expensive orbital communications equipment. It was believed that a pair of miscalibrated sensors had mistakenly produced this absurd result. But a proper scientific approach always requires the most rigorous verification of any questionable fact. Repeated checks by various independent teams of researchers yielded the same impossible result time and again. By all physical parameters, the star truly appeared to be older than the very fabric of space and time itself. This glaring paradox quickly became a real headache for all of today's leading cosmologists. They were literally at their wits' end, trying to find even the slightest logical explanation for the absurdity unfolding before them. The entire scientific world quickly plunged into a state of deep and oppressive shock upon receiving this insane data. The problem lay in a very simple, yet insurmountable logical impasse for human perception. If a star is objectively older than the universe in which it exists, then all of our advanced science is completely wrong. For decades, we have grown accustomed to unquestioningly trusting our ultra-precise instruments and mathematical models of the expansion of space. Space missions are successfully built upon these complex formulas, and thick university textbooks are written based on them. But the infinitely distant Methuselah vividly demonstrates to us that the reality outside the window may be completely different. This is not just a minor, annoying inaccuracy in one of the many complex equations on the blackboard. It is a huge, fundamental contradiction that casts serious doubt on the very existence of logic in our world. We suddenly found ourselves faced with a fact that brutally shatters the very structure of cause and effect relationships. A son cannot possibly be born before his mother, and a star cannot appear before the Big Bang. At the very beginning of this scientific saga, astronomers sincerely hoped it was nothing more than a simple human or technical error. With maniacal persistence, they double-checked every bit of digital data received from ground-based and orbital observatories. Researchers literally searched under powerful microscopes for defects in glass lenses and tiny software glitches in processing algorithms. They desperately wanted to find a specific technician at fault, or simply an inattentive young lab assistant. To the immense disappointment of all the skeptics, every new stream of fresh data only confirmed the impossible longevity of this star. The situation rapidly began to spiral out of reasonable control, causing a veritable quiet panic in academic offices. The star continued to shine coldly in the void, stubbornly ignoring all our earthly notions of the proper passage of time. It seemed to be mockingly laughing at the thousands of intelligent people in white coats sitting at their monitors. The viewer needs to clearly understand the true scale of the problem that theorists have come face to face with. According to generally accepted and official academic science, our universe is only 13,800,000,000 years old. This specific number is considered the most unshakable constant upon which all of modern cosmology is firmly built. This figure is not plucked out of thin air. It has been repeatedly and reliably confirmed by observations of cosmic microwave background radiation. This official age is also reliably confirmed by analyzing the motion of the galaxy clusters farthest from us. Yet the stubborn Methuselah, with its parameters, loudly asserts that it has existed for several 100 million years longer than this time frame. This sounds like absolute and unforgivable nonsense to any educated person. It is as if a small child, according to official documents, turned out to be several years older than his own parents. And now scientists had to somehow legitimize this impossible passport in the strict scientific world. These highly controversial ideas ruthlessly shattered the familiar and universally understood image of a well-ordered universe. Classical Newtonian physics, and even Einstein's theory of relativity, were bursting at the seams under the weight of a single dim star. And this established fact frightened researchers far more than any massive black hole in the neighborhood. After all, black holes have long been predicted by formulas, but this strange star violates the very fundamental law of existence. The situation becomes even more tense and alarming when we look closely at the star's immediate surroundings. It turns out that it is flying through space at an incredibly high speed, atypical for this region. Methuselah seems to be trying to escape from us and our vast galactic system as quickly as possible. Its strange trajectory differs sharply and significantly from the familiar circular motion of the other objects in the disk. Ordinary stars peacefully and predictably dance in a circle around the galaxy's massive center, but this object breaks all the rules. Methuselah clearly does not belong to the local stellar population in our home spiral arm of the Milky Way. It is a very ancient and completely independent wanderer, simply passing through our solar system in transit. Its long journey stretches from the deepest, coldest, and darkest depths of the great cosmic past. We are merely accidental and very fortunate spectators of its incredibly long and mysterious journey through the darkness. The orbit of this unusual celestial body directly attests to its ancient birth in the very halo of the Milky Way. It was there, in the most lifeless outskirts of the galaxy, that the very first clusters of matter formed billions of years ago. Scientists are now asking themselves one very important and troubling question with growing anxiety. How many more such impossible objects are hiding right now in the endless darkness above our heads? Perhaps today, our best telescopes see only the tip of a massive iceberg in this ocean of spatial anomalies. If a single dim star could so easily violate the fundamental laws of time, then our entire system is completely unstable. The foundation of our cozy home turns out to be built on the shifting sands of total human ignorance. Every such new, large-scale discovery makes the vast cosmos an increasingly alien and frightening place for the average person. We can no longer feel completely intellectually secure within our beautiful old theories. The reality surrounding us has begun to rapidly crumble right before our eyes, like a house of cards in a strong wind. Many years of hard work by the best minds on our small planet have suddenly been threatened with total collapse and historical oblivion. The familiar and comforting picture of a homogeneous and perfectly understandable universe vanishes without a trace in the dim light of this ancient giant. Official academic science requires an urgent and effective rescue of its basic dogmas. But no one has any clear, coherent, or logical answers yet. All that remains is a growing fear of the unknown. Imagine the genuine existential horror of an experienced astrophysicist seeing this for the first time on his work monitor. For decades, you have built a flawless model of the world, where every planet and star has its own strictly logical place. And suddenly, a single red pixel of new data completely and mercilessly invalidates the work of your entire conscious life. You simply cannot physically delete it from the database or cowardly pretend that it does not exist in nature. Methuselah very insistently and vividly demands that we fully acknowledge its impossible and terrifying antiquity. This is the most direct and audacious challenge to all human intellect and our ability to objectively understand the world around us. We are forced to accept this unequal battle, in which we are initially in the position of the loser. The Methuselah problem has rapidly escalated from a private, amusing incident into a global systemic crisis for all of physics. It has harshly forced us to remember just how insignificantly little we actually know about the true structure of the cosmos. We remain nothing more than tiny, overly self-assured beings on this planet, attempting to measure infinity. The star Methuselah serves as a timely reminder of our true, very humble place in the hierarchy of the universe. True science that drives progress is always born exclusively from unsolvable paradoxes and profound systemic crises. Right now, the global astronomical community is actively pooling its resources to urgently build new telescopes of incredible power. They will certainly help clarify the details and find a possible error in the complex calculations of parallax shift. But until then, the mysterious dim light will continue to taunt the greatest minds of all humanity. We are forced to humbly live in a paradigm where the effect paradoxically precedes the cause. And this is the most uncomfortable state for rigorous analytical thought. In this chapter, we have only slightly opened the heavy door to the world of massive cosmic inconsistencies. From here on, the situation will only become more confusing and frankly frightening for any thinking observer. We will definitely have to figure out in detail exactly how we determine the age of any stars in this cold void. You will see with your own eyes that our advanced measurement methods are themselves a source of great alarm. Space holds far more secrets than we could have ever imagined, and the star Methuselah is merely the first sign that the system has failed. Determining a star's age is not just a difficult task, it is a true detective's work. Unfortunately, we have absolutely no physical way of flying to such an object and taking a sample of its matter. Cosmic distances are so incomprehensibly vast that a flight there would take millions of Earth years, even with the best engines. Therefore, we are forced to rely exclusively on the faint and highly distorted light that miraculously reaches our sensors. Astronomers carefully analyze the spectrum of this radiation, much like experienced investigators examining fingerprints at a crime scene. For scientists, the primary and most reliable indicator of a star's age is the total amount of so-called metals in the star's composition. In professional astronomy, the term metals refers to absolutely all elements heavier than hydrogen and helium. This is a very important fundamental difference between cosmic terminology and the chemistry we are accustomed to learning in school on Earth. Immediately after the Grand Big Bang, the young universe contained neither sparkling gold, nor durable iron, nor carbon. The very first giant stars were born exclusively from pure primordial gas in conditions of near-total cosmic emptiness. These first, unwieldy stellar giants lived out their very short and incredibly turbulent lives, spectacularly exploding at the very end as supernovae. It was precisely these grand explosions, unprecedented in their power, that generously seeded the empty cosmos with the first heavy elements for future generations. With each new long cycle of birth and inevitable death, young forming stars became increasingly enriched with a variety of metals. Our own warm sun came into being quite late and, as expected, absorbed a vast multitude of such useful heavy elements. By studying this complex chemical composition, we are effectively reading a detailed historical chronicle of a specific, isolated region of the vast cosmos. The rule here is extremely simple and understandable to any observer with a telescope. The purer the stellar plasma is of heavy impurities, the more ancient was the historical era of the formation of the object we are observing. Careful analysis has shown that Methuselah has an incredibly low content of ordinary iron compared to our own Sun. Its seething composition contains approximately 250 times less metal than our familiar yellow dwarf. This indisputable chemical fact directly and unequivocally indicates that this star was born in a very pure and ancient environment. It undoubtedly belongs to the earliest generation of stellar objects that emerged at the very dawn of the existence of our entire cosmos. It would seem that such an ideal and pure chemical pedigree logically and correctly explains its venerable and substantial age. The theory perfectly aligned with observed data in this fundamental aspect of the research. The problem was simply that the final calculated figure turned out to be far too extreme for such an ancient specimen. To obtain the most accurate mathematical figures, science always requires incredibly precise instruments for calibrating time itself. Today, leading scientists widely use highly complex computer models to simulate in detail the lives of stars of completely different types. We know very well and in great detail how quickly hydrogen fuel burns out inside a star, in direct proportion to the object's initial mass. According to strict scientific classification, Methuselah is a so-called subgiant, that is, a star that has already begun to slowly die and expand. It is precisely during this brief transitional stage that the object's exact age can be determined with much greater confidence and final accuracy. This is a sort of ideal golden window for professional stellar archaeology and for constructing the most accurate age calculations possible. And it was precisely in this transparent mathematical window that we suddenly saw a number that simply should not exist according to the laws of physics. Discouraged, the scientists had to dig even deeper into the theory to find a potential cause for such a global systemic failure. Determining a star's exact age based on its brightness and temperature is very much like trying to guess the age of a burning candle by the size of its flame. You need to know very precisely and reliably how much wax was there to begin with, and exactly how fast it melts in that particular room. But in the vast, dark cosmos, we see only the glowing candle itself, yet we rarely understand the exact physical distance to it. If such a star appears very dim to us from Earth, it may be either simply very old or very, very far away from us. Any tiny error in determining this cosmic distance by just a few small percentages changes the final age by billions of years. This unfortunate circumstance makes our earthly calculations extremely fragile and totally dependent on the flawless accuracy of the expensive instruments used. The vast, cold distances constantly create a virtually insurmountable barrier to a direct and 100% reliable assessment of the true age of celestial bodies. We are constantly forced to artificially construct an entire complex ladder of cosmic distances to conduct a basic verification of our hypotheses. Each new step in this highly complex and precarious ladder of calculations relies heavily on the step immediately preceding it, and the slightest imperceptible flaw at the very foundation threatens to instantly bring down this entire grandiose mathematical structure of years of calculations. In the specific complex case of the star Methuselah, this measurement accuracy immediately became a matter of life and death for an entire fundamental theory. Scientists used data accumulated over the years from old, reliable satellites to calculate the three-dimensional position of this star in empty space with extreme precision. The verified distance they obtained clearly indicated that the old star shines slightly brighter in the night sky than it should, according to theory. And according to the strict laws of thermodynamics, this automatically meant that it burns its internal fuel much more slowly and, accordingly, lives longer than others. And so, step by cautious step, we inexorably arrived at that very frightening figure of 14.5 billion years in the final answer. And at that very tense moment, not a single one of the world's experts could find a single flaw in this ironclad scientific logic. Imperceptible errors in precise measurements are precisely the nagging evil that has kept responsible astronomers awake at night for years. We live in a fragile digital world where a single misinterpreted photon can shatter the entire established picture of the universe. Our best optical instruments have their own very strict physical limits of sensitivity, which we constantly and desperately try to overcome technically. Hidden sources of harmful cosmic interference can lurk insidiously in clouds of interstellar dust, or even in the dense atmosphere of Earth itself. Even the most modern and incredibly expensive orbital equipment does not give us a 100% guarantee of obtaining absolute and unshakable truth. We are always forced to wander through a thick mathematical fog of probabilities and constantly construct a multitude of complex statistical assumptions to continue our work. This eternal pursuit of unattainable ideal perfection forces scientists to regularly rewrite the most basic research algorithms. Methods for determining the age of stars are continuously modernized and refined, becoming increasingly sophisticated and accounting for hundreds of new hidden factors. Over time, we have begun to carefully account for the immense pressure of internal radiation, the flows of hot convection within stars, and even their complex magnetic fields. Data on nuclear reactions and the rate of heavy helium settling at the very center of a dying star's core are added to mathematical formulas. But even all these microscopic, meticulous refinements too often lead us to even stranger and utterly incomprehensible final results. Our accumulated knowledge of the universe is steadily expanding, yet the impenetrable mysteries at the edge of that knowledge only grow with each passing day. Methuselah has become the perfect historical example of how objective reality itself desperately resists our attempts to measure and weigh it accurately. This distant star seems to mock, with malice, the age-old human desire to finally organize everything and neatly arrange it on catalog shelves. We naively and stubbornly try to catch time itself by the tail, but it constantly and mockingly slips away from us into a dark and cold void. Every new answer to an old riddle immediately gives rise to a dozen new and quite frightening questions about the nature of fundamental things. Leading theorists are forced, day after day, to piece together a vast logical mosaic in which half of the important details are clearly borrowed from some other picture. This is an incredibly exhausting intellectual labor, requiring tremendous perseverance and crystal-clear scientific integrity toward themselves and toward society. Imagine that you've been measuring the length of a huge room for a very long time, using a ruler whose important markings have long since worn away. You can only guess at the size, but you'll never be certain down to the millimeter in your final report. We ambitiously and boldly try to reach out with our hands to the farthest stars, while in fact continuing to sit at the bottom of a deep well of our own delusions. The proper scientific method always demands, with the utmost rigor, that we question absolutely every research result obtained in the laboratory. No authoritative textbook dogma can forever withstand the powerful pressure of completely new and irrefutable physical facts from space. This harsh and cold scientific discipline absolutely does not allow working astronomers to relax for even a single second of their time. In the next chapter, we will examine in detail how new data on distance change the situation. But don't rush to rejoice. Solving one problem has given rise to an even deeper mystery. It turned out that the refined figures brought with them completely unexpected difficulties. We are about to delve into the very depths of modern quantum and relativistic physics. Space has once again proven its superiority over the humble human mind. The darkness around us only grows thicker, and the questions ever more complex. To understand Methuselah's true age, we needed to know exactly where he was. In astronomy, the parallax method is used for this, the change in an object's apparent position. Imagine looking at your finger while alternately closing your left and right eyes. The finger will shift relative to the background, and this shift allows us to calculate the distance. It was crucial for us to detect this movement in the star to uncover its secret. For distant stars, different points along Earth's orbit serve as our eyes over the course of a whole year. First, we look at the star from one side of the sun, and 6 months later, from the other. Methuselah is incredibly far away, so its shift in the sky appears minuscule. At such enormous distances, this movement becomes practically imperceptible to ordinary instruments. But it is precisely in this infinitesimal difference in angles that the key to understanding the object's entire history lies. We received the first serious data on Methuselah from a satellite called Hipparcos. This spacecraft was launched specifically to create the most accurate map of our sky. Throughout the mission's many years of operation, its measurements were considered the gold standard for all scientists. The whole world trusted these figures, since the spacecraft was in space and was not subject to atmospheric interference. It was precisely its data that formed the basis of that very first paradoxical age measurement. However, even Hipparcos, the most advanced instrument of its time, had its physical limits. Its technical limitations prevented it from seeing the finest details in the positions of distant stars. At first glance, the error in the distance to Methuselah was minuscule. But on a cosmic scale, this small inaccuracy led to truly catastrophic consequences for the theory. It turned out that even a slight deviation in distance completely changes our understanding of time. When the calculation yielded 14.5 billion years, the scientific community literally split into two camps. Some researchers believed that the age of the universe and the Big Bang theory itself needed to be reevaluated. They were prepared to take radical steps and admit that our foundations of physics were flawed. Others, however, were firmly convinced that the problem lay in the imperfection of our orbital instruments. A long and grueling battle began for every kilometer of accuracy in this vast expanse of space. At stake was our very trust in fundamental science and all its proven methods. Scientists understood that they must either acknowledge the existence of an incredible anomaly or find the error. The situation was heating up, as the old textbooks could be consigned to the dustbin of history at any moment. We had to either accept the miracle or prove that our hands and instruments had failed us. We had to search for the truth in the most delicate adjustments and complex formulas of the time. The main problem was that Methuselah seemed too bright for its supposed distance. In astronomy, brightness is directly related to how much energy a star emits from its core. If a star is closer to us than we previously thought, its true luminosity should be lower. And according to the laws of physics, a less bright subgiant star has a shorter lifespan. It burns through its fuel reserves faster and ages on a different timeline. This chain of logic became the very thread that scientists clung to in order to save the world. They needed to determine the star's position in space at all costs. It was enough to move it just a tiny fraction of a degree. But doing so honestly, without new and higher quality data, was absolutely impossible. Science does not tolerate falsification, so the researchers began waiting for a new technological breakthrough. Then the famous Hubble telescope entered the scene, equipped with much sharper vision. Astronomers decided to use its powerful sensors to recheck the old results from the Hipparcos mission. They conducted a long series of highly precise observations over several years. Hubble attempted to detect the slightest tremor of the star against the backdrop of distant, motionless galaxies. Its sensors recorded changes that were inaccessible to any other instrument in the world. This new data allowed the distance to Methuselah to be refined with a precision that was incredible for the time. To the great relief of many cosmologists, the star's age began to gradually decrease in the new calculations. The more precise the distance became, the younger this stellar long-liver appeared on paper. It seemed that the looming catastrophe had been averted, and logic had triumphantly returned to our homes. Scientists breathed a sigh of relief, but it was still too early to celebrate a final victory. The new age estimate following Hubble's work was about 14.5 billion years. But now an important margin of error of 800 million years had been added to this figure. This meant that, at best, the star could be 13,700 million years old. Finally, the figure somehow fit within the official age of the universe. But this result was achieved only by the very narrowest margin of acceptable values. The situation was like trying to cram a huge suitcase into a tiny airplane overhead bin. The lid seemed to close, but the fabric was stretched so tight that everyone around was seriously worried. The problem of inconsistency hadn't disappeared. It had simply become less glaring and obvious to the general public. Scientists understood that they were walking a tightrope, and this balance was very precarious. A slight shift in the data would be enough to send everything crashing down again. An error of 800 million years is a colossal span of time for all of human civilization. In that time, thousands of different life forms could have emerged and become completely extinct on our planet many times over. In astronomy, however, such a vast margin is considered an acceptable concession for the sake of preserving the general theory. But such a state of affairs can never please a true seeker of truth. We have simply pushed the problem into a zone of uncertainty, hoping that it will remain there forever. The universe rarely forgives humans for such attempts to hide its most important and fundamental secrets. We tried to reassure ourselves with numbers, but a quiet unease was growing within the scientific community. Every new study only added more questions to the old answers. Methuselah continued to shine in the void, as if testing us for honesty and perseverance. We realized that playing hide-and-seek with reality cannot go on forever. The viewer must understand that we are still walking on very thin and fragile ice. If tomorrow's new measurements show that the margin of error was smaller, the age paradox will return once again. We live in a state of only a temporary truce with reality, one that could end any day. Methuselah continues to hang in the void like a silent rebuke of our human pride. We have adjusted the numbers to fit the desired answer, but the equation of life itself has not become any simpler. The darkness continues to stare at us from the depths of space, waiting for us to take the next step. For us, every update to our measurements is like a new clue in a very convoluted criminal case. At first, we thought that time itself was the theory's main killer. Then we decided that we had simply been let down by a faulty or outdated instrument. But the more we refine the small details, the stranger the overall picture of what is happening appears. We discovered that Methuselah isn't the only one behaving suspiciously in this distant sector of the sky. It turns out there are other objects teetering on the edge of the age limits permitted by physics. The entire system of the universe is beginning to look not like harmony, but like a collection of poorly fitted parts. Our ideas about the beginning of time are beginning to crack under the weight of new facts. We find ourselves in a situation where the old rules can no longer explain the new reality. In the next chapter, we will learn how the Gaia mission dealt a decisive blow to all our hopes. You will see that ultra-precise modern technology has not brought scientists definitive peace of mind. On the contrary, it has exposed even deeper cracks in the very foundation of our shared home. Space is a veritable hell for those who seek only an ideal and comprehensible order within it. We were wrong before, and most likely, we continue to be wrong right now. Prepare yourself for the fact that the scale of the problem will turn out to be much greater than you could have imagined. In 2013, the new Gaia spacecraft was launched into orbit, destined to become the god of precision. Its primary mission was to measure the positions of 1 billion stars with a level of detail previously unattainable. For this project, Methuselah became one of the top priorities and most important targets. Scientists awaited the new data with bated breath and a secret hope for a final resolution. They sincerely believed that ultra-precise parallax measurements would finally put an end to this protracted debate. Engineers created a camera for Gaia with incredible resolution to capture the slightest fluctuations in light. This instrument can see the thickness of a human hair from a distance of several thousand kilometers. It was expected that such sharp vision would help dispel all doubts and clean the data of noise. When the first results began to arrive on Earth, silence fell over the research institutes. Gaia truly delivered a result that left all the experts speechless with amazement. New measurements have shown that the distance to the star Methuselah has been determined with near-perfect accuracy. The margin of error in the distance has been reduced to a minimum that previously seemed like pure fantasy to us. It would seem that now we can finally calculate the true age without any reservations or doubts. But mathematics is a very cruel thing. It never takes our wishes into account. Based on the latest data, the star's age has once again settled at around 13.5 billion years. This number turned out to be dangerously close to the very moment of our entire world's birth. The problem is that stars cannot be born simultaneously with the universe itself in the very same second. After the Big Bang, matter was too hot and dense for the first stars to form. It took time for the primordial gas to cool and gather into giant clouds. Only then could gravity trigger the first thermonuclear reactions in the cores of young stars. The first stars in space must have appeared at least 100 or 200 million years later. This is the most optimistic time frame allowed by modern models of the universe's evolution. If Methuselah is truly 13.5 billion years old, then there is a negligible amount of time left for its formation. It looks as if a huge house was built before the foundation had even been poured with concrete. The logical chain of science once again finds itself on the verge of a complete and inevitable breakdown. We've run into a situation where pure science is starting to openly contradict common sense. We now have perfect tools that give us the most reliable numbers. We have time-tested theories of stellar evolution that work for millions of other objects. But when we apply them to a single star, we get an absurd result. Something in this combination is fundamentally wrong, but we still don't understand exactly what. It's as if we're looking at a complex optical illusion that stubbornly refuses to form a clear picture. Astronomers began digging into Methuselah's chemical composition with even greater zeal and even fanaticism. They hoped to find traces of rare elements there that could alter the rate of hydrogen burning. At one point, a hypothesis was put forward that the star's oxygen content was higher than previously thought. Scientists tried to find any excuse to save their familiar worldview. A high oxygen level could theoretically slightly accelerate the star's evolution in its earliest stages. This would allow scientists to shave off another few 100 million years from its official age. But such calculations again looked like a desperate attempt to force reality to fit the answer. Many researchers began to openly criticize such methods, calling them scientific stretching. We have reached a point where the old ways of explaining anomalies have ceased to work. The viewer should feel the tension mounting with each new discovery in this search for the truth. We are no longer talking about a simple measurement error or the poor quality of an old glass lens. We are talking about the possibility that our fundamental understanding of the chemistry and life of stars may be wrong. If we are mistaken in the case of Methuselah, then we are misjudging every object in the sky. This small star has become a symptom of a deep-seated illness afflicting the entire tree of our knowledge. We are on the very threshold of realizing that the universe may operate by entirely different rules. Imagine you are building a bridge, and every detail has been checked by the world's best engineers. You are confident in every bolt and every beam, because they comply with all the laws of physics. But when you place the last brick in its spot, the bridge begins to slowly and smoothly rise into the air. This is exactly the feeling of helplessness that cosmologists experience when they look at the latest reports from the Gaia mission. Physics tells us a confident yes, but our logic screams no, pointing to a clear discrepancy. We've found ourselves trapped by our own precision, which leaves us no room to maneuver. Before, we could blame it all on faulty instruments, but now that loophole is closed. Reality has literally closed in around us, leaving us alone with the unsolvable mystery of time. We are forced to face facts that defy any reasonable explanation. What if the problem isn't with the star itself, but with our understanding of the age of the universe? We've grown so accustomed to the figure of 13.8 billion years. But where does our absolute certainty come from? This number was derived from observations of how quickly distant galaxies are flying apart in different directions. This process is described by the Hubble constant, which is considered the primary measure of the universe's expansion rate. But here lies the main conundrum of our time. This constant itself has become the subject of controversy. We have come to the very edge of the abyss, where a true chasm of the unknown yawns beneath our feet. Every new step in the study of Methuselah takes us further and further away from a cozy and understandable world. We began our journey with a single strange star and have arrived at a full-scale crisis in our understanding of the cosmos. This is not merely a story about a distant and dim star, it is a story about our total misunderstanding of the fundamentals. It turns out that we know far less about our home than we would like to believe. The universe turns out to be a much more complex and perhaps even artificial place than we thought. We are merely small spectators in a vast theater where the scenery begins to crumble right in the middle of the act. And none of us knows exactly how this strange and frightening play about time will end. We're trying to piece together the fragments of old theories, but they no longer fit into a coherent whole. Ahead of us lies the realization that we've missed something very important. In the next chapter, we'll take a detailed look at Hubble's constant and understand why it broke down. You'll see that the conflict between the age of a star and the entire universe is just the tip of the iceberg. Hidden beneath the surface is a monstrous error that directly affects every atom in your body. Reality is not at all what you're used to seeing, and it's becoming increasingly terrifying. We were wrong about the most fundamental thing, and the time has come to admit it openly to the whole world. Get ready for the deepest dive down the rabbit hole of modern cosmology. The Hubble constant is a number that determines the rate at which our universe is expanding. If we know this rate, we can rewind time and determine the moment of the beginning. It's as if you were watching a runner and knew their exact and constant speed. Based on his current position, it's easy to calculate exactly when he started from the starting point. But the problem is that different measurement methods yield completely different speeds. And this difference creates the very gap that Methuselah's age doesn't fit into. Scientists spent decades searching for this ideal cosmic speedometer. They hoped to arrive at a single number that would logically explain the entire history of our world. This number would allow us to say exactly how many days have passed since the creation of all things. But the universe turned out to be far more elusive than we could have imagined in our wildest theories. Instead of a single clear answer, it presented us with an incredibly complex puzzle. Our cosmic runner seems to change speed every meter of its immense journey. The first measurement method is based on a careful study of the cosmic microwave background, or the echo of the Big Bang itself. The Planck satellite has compiled an incredibly detailed map of this ancient light in the early cosmos. This faint glow permeates all of space and carries information about the first moments of the universe's existence. Based on this data, the universe is expanding at a specific and very precise rate. This method gives us that very official age of 13,800,000,000 years. For a long time, scientists considered this result the gold standard and the ultimate truth. Cosmologists breathed a sigh of relief, deciding that nature's greatest mystery had finally been solved. They began to confidently build all other theories about the future and past of distant galaxies on this figure. It seemed that the foundation of our knowledge was stronger than ever before in the history of observation. We were absolutely certain that we held in our hands the Creator's own precise clock. But then other data emerged, which hopelessly spoiled everything and shattered this academic peace. The second method measures the expansion rate using modern objects such as bright supernovae and Cepheids. Cepheids are special pulsating beacon stars whose brightness varies with very strict periodicity. Astronomers observe how quickly these galaxies are receding from us in the current era of the world's existence. And this is where the real nightmare begins for any self-respecting physicist and theorist. This method shows that the universe is expanding significantly faster than the Planck map predicts. The difference in the results of these two methods is about 10%, which is simply unthinkable for an exact science. If we are to believe modern measurements, the universe must be much younger than its official age. We get an age of about 12 billion years instead of the usual 13 plus. This means that space is flying apart in all directions at a terrifying and inexplicable speed. Our calculations differ from reality by a whole billion years of cosmic evolution. This conflict has been dubbed the Hubble tension, and it is the greatest mystery of modern science. We have two absolutely reliable methods that yield two fundamentally different answers. Both methods have been verified by hundreds of independent teams, and neither contains any obvious errors. If the second figure is correct, then Methuselah becomes not just an anomaly, but a physical impossibility. A star 13 billion years old cannot possibly exist in a universe 12 billion years old. We are facing a systemic failure that cannot be explained by a simple instrument calibration error. Something in our basic model of the world is fundamentally and profoundly broken. We see two completely different ages for the same surrounding space. This directly contradicts every conceivable law of formal logic and common sense. Scientists cannot simply turn a blind eye to this fact, or it undermines the very essence of the scientific method. Look at this situation through the eyes of an ordinary person who firmly believes in logic and progress. We've been told since childhood that science knows everything and is capable of explaining any mystery of nature. But now, the smartest people on the planet can't agree on the age of our shared home. We live in a reality that is expanding at two different speeds simultaneously in our minds. This creates an eerie sensation that we are inside a broken video game or a global digital simulation. The developers of this cosmic program simply forgot to synchronize the data between the different levels of the digital world. On a macro level, we see one set of numbers, but up close, entirely different physical laws are at work. And we, as very attentive players, have noticed this obvious and frightening software bug. This error in the code of reality haunts us and demands immediate correction in patches. But we have no contact with the creators, and we are forced to find a way out of this impasse on our own. The viewer should feel an existential anxiety upon realizing this vast scientific fact. If we do not know the exact age of the universe, we know nothing of any significance about it at all. All our elaborate calculations about the fate of galaxies and the future of humanity may turn out to be meaningless. We make grandiose plans for millions of years into the future, completely unaware of how much time has passed before us. It's like trying to confidently predict the ending of a book from which someone has torn out the first 100 pages. We wander in the dark, proudly calling it the modern scientific search for truth. In this tense situation, Methuselah acts as a completely independent and honest witness. He flatly refuses to lie under oath to preserve the authority of academic science. His ancient light is direct evidence pointing to the inaccuracy of our global calculations. He tells us openly, "Guys, your world is either older or it's expanding in a way you never imagined." To heed this voice from the past means to completely overturn hundreds of dissertations. This forces scientists to desperately search for new physics, inventing forces and particles we didn't know about before. Perhaps there was a strange, dark energy in the early universe that suddenly accelerated everything. But this sounds like just another attempt to come up with a shaky crutch for a crumbling and decrepit theory. Why are we so afraid to admit that the universe might be far more complex than we understand? Because it means losing control over the reality we've studied for so long. We find it very comforting to think that everything in the world can be described by a couple of elegant formulas on a blackboard. We want to believe that humans are the crown of creation and the rightful rulers of nature. But space turns out to be wild, unpredictable, and completely unwilling to obey our rules. It deliberately throws riddles like Methuselah our way to knock the arrogance and pride out of us. We are merely dust in the wind of time, trying to measure the power of the hurricane itself. Every time you hear about new breakthroughs in cosmology, remember this unsolvable debate. We still do not know for certain at what speed the space beneath our feet is receding from us. And until this debate is resolved, Methuselah will remain a specter, haunting our imagination. This is not just a star. It is a vivid symbol of our total defeat in the face of true infinity. We were wrong before, we are wrong now, and we will most likely continue to be wrong. And therein lies the greatest and most terrifying mystery of our existence in the darkness. Next, we'll explore the wild hypotheses scientists are proposing to save the day. You'll learn about dark matter, changes to the laws of gravity, and other strange phenomena. The situation will become even more tense because the very concept of reality is at stake. Prepare to see a world where nothing is what it seems at first glance. We are entering a realm where science begins to resemble mysticism or a nightmare. The darkness is thickening, and there is still no sign of a way out of this labyrinth. Chapter 6. New Physics or Old Mistakes. When old formulas stop working, scientists start coming up with new, sometimes completely crazy rules. If Methuselah doesn't fit the age of the universe, then either the star or the universe itself needs to be radically changed. Some bold physicists have suggested that gravity in the distant past worked quite differently from what we are used to. Perhaps the force of attraction was slightly stronger or, conversely, weaker in the very earliest stages of the universe's development. Such a serious assumption could completely change the rate of aging of all the first objects in the sky. Stars with a different gravitational force would burn at a completely different rate, throwing our modern calculations into disarray. But to acknowledge such inconsistency in the laws of nature would mean throwing all of the great Albert Einstein's work into the trash. The theory of relativity is based on the fact that fundamental laws are constant at any point in time. If we start changing constants at our discretion, serious science turns into science fiction. Therefore, this destructive path seems too dangerous for most conservative researchers. Another incredibly popular hypothesis concerns the mysterious dark energy that causes space to expand rapidly. Scientists have posited the existence of so-called early dark energy, which was active only in the first moments after the Big Bang. It could have given the young cosmos a powerful initial push, accelerating matter to enormous speeds. And then, this energy supposedly vanished without a trace into the void, leaving us alone to deal with the consequences. This elegant mathematical assumption would finally reconcile the data from the Planck satellite with modern measurements. But to an unbiased observer, this looks like a desperate attempt to invent a magic wand. Such a wand miraculously solves any mathematical problem solely at the will of its creator. We simply add new variables to our equations only because the old ones no longer suit us. This is a very dangerous method that could lead all of astronomy into a conceptual dead end. Science risks turning into a collection of artificial constructs, devoid of any common sense. There is an even more alarming hypothesis regarding the hidden nature of matter itself inside stars like Methuselah. Perhaps our knowledge of nuclear reactions inside stars is merely a crude and inaccurate approximation. We confidently assume that we know how hydrogen atoms behave under monstrous pressure and temperature. But what if invisible particles of dark matter, which accumulate in the cores of ancient stars, secretly come into play? They could act as a powerful invisible catalyst, slowing down or accelerating the fuel-burning process. In such an incredible scenario, all our age calculations turn into meaningless fortune-telling from coffee grounds. We cannot accurately measure the influence of something we cannot even see with our most advanced telescopes. Our fatal ignorance of the true chemical composition of the cosmos makes any conclusions highly questionable. The viewer must realize just how shaky the edifice of modern scientific thought has become on this fundamental issue. We no longer rely on hard facts. We are forced to build conjectures directly on top of other conjectures. Every new answer to the Methuselah paradox immediately gives rise to a dozen new, even more complex and terrifying questions. We are frantically patching up huge holes in a sinking ship, using nothing but thin paper and glue. Our ship continues to slowly sink into the abyss of the unknown, while we pretend that everything is under complete control. This is a classic state of systemic crisis that directly affects the foundations of our perception of the entire surrounding reality. We are losing our balance, frantically trying to cling to the comforting concepts of a bygone era. Imagine for a moment that tomorrow, leading physicists will officially announce some truly terrifying news. They will say, "The laws of nature are constantly changing depending on the current historical moment. Today, 2 times 2 equals 4, but a billion years ago it could easily have been 5 or 3.5. Such an unstable picture of the world instantly turns the cosmos into a chaotic and utterly unpredictable nightmare for the mind. We are deprived of our last reliable anchor, faith in the immutability and universality of strict logic. Methuselah, by the very fact of his existence, pushes us toward this frightening and dangerous prospect. He openly tells us that we cannot unconditionally trust even our most basic and fundamental axioms. In response, scientists have begun actively exploring the possibility that we live in a special, completely empty region of the cosmos. If our galaxy is located inside a giant cosmic bubble with low matter density, this distorts all observations. Light from distant objects struggles to pass through the various layers of space, altering its properties on its way to us. This clever assumption could elegantly explain why local velocity measurements differ so greatly from global ones. But such a hypothesis makes us too unique, which contradicts the main principle of astronomy. We are utterly ordinary. To acknowledge our exceptionality in location is to accept that we see a distorted and inaccurate version of the world. All these countless theories share only one highly revealing and sad characteristic. They are desperately trying to save us from acknowledging our own total ignorance in the face of the universe. We are terrified to say out loud, "We don't know how this world works, and our models are complete nonsense." It is much easier and safer to invent a new particle or field to plug the financial hole in the current budget of knowledge. But the silent Methuselah continues to shine brightly, reminding us that the truth may be much simpler and more terrifying. Perhaps we simply fail to see something incredibly important that lies right under our noses. And this something is capable of overturning our entire scientific paradigm in a single fleeting moment. Think about how often humanity has been tragically wrong in its grandest and boldest ideas. For centuries, we believed that the Earth was flat, that the sun obediently revolved around us, that atoms were indivisible spheres. Each time, we were absolutely and irrevocably certain of our own correctness, until reality dealt us a crushing blow. Methuselah is precisely such a blow, one we are now desperately trying to soften with complex and beautiful words. We are in a phase of denial, trying to come to terms with facts that categorically refuse to compromise. The darkness around us is not simply empty. It is full of things we absolutely do not want to notice. In the next chapter, we will move on to the most frightening aspect of this story, ourselves. You will see why the anomaly of a single star concerns the future of the entire human race on the planet. We will examine how errors in the age of the universe affect our chances of survival in this cold world. The situation will become extremely serious, because we'll be talking about the end of time and the fate of the mind. We were wrong about the scale of things, and the time has come to face true existential horror. Reality is cracking at the seams, and we are right in the center of this massive fault line. If we cannot precisely determine the age of the world, we lose touch with its beginning and end. The Big Bang is not just a point on a graph. It is the moment of the origin of all our atoms. We have grown accustomed to thinking that the universe is expanding smoothly and predictably, like an inflating balloon. But Methuselah's paradox suggests that there were hidden chapters and dark twists in this story. Perhaps the expansion occurred in spurts, or space had a complex, multidimensional form from the very beginning. We are trying to describe an ocean while seeing only the ripples on its endless and deep surface. This cosmic ripple reaches us as a faint glow that permeates absolutely everything around us. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, and it is the oldest possible image of our universe. It is this light that holds the greatest secrets about how the first matter came into being. But the longer we study this pattern, the more oddities we begin to notice in it. It seems that the original plan of creation was disrupted by someone or hastily rewritten right in the middle of the process. And the star Methuselah is direct proof of this massive cosmic intervention. Our lack of understanding of the universe's age is directly linked to the central question: are we alone in this cosmos? If the universe is younger than we thought, then life had much less time to emerge. Every 100 million years is critical for the evolution of complex biological organisms. An error in the calculations could mean that we are the first, or even the only, civilization in this sector. This transforms the cosmos from a bustling, living place into an utterly dead and cold desert. Loneliness on such a scale is far more unsettling than any encounter with an unknown alien intelligence. Think about how many incredible coincidences were required for intelligent humans to emerge on planet Earth. Our planet had to be at the perfect distance from a calm and stable star. Then, billions of years were spent forming a suitable atmosphere and giving rise to the first primitive cells in the ocean. Any serious disruption in the chemical reactions could have permanently halted this fragile and lengthy process. If there had been less time for all of this, our chances of coming into existence would have been virtually zero. We exist in defiance of mathematical probability, as if someone had rigged this lottery win on purpose. The great silence of the cosmos frightens even the most ardent scientific optimists. We have been sending radio signals into the void for decades, but in response we hear only the white noise of dead galaxies. If the age of the universe has been calculated incorrectly, then all our searches for intelligent life are doomed to failure from the start. We may be searching for signals in time periods when no one else could physically have existed. Our naive belief in an overpopulated cosmos shatters against the harsh mathematics of ancient stellar giants. It becomes clear that life requires such unique conditions that they may never recur. We look at Methuselah and realize that the life of a star is a long and very complex process. If this star has managed to survive for so long, it means that stable conditions in the cosmos are a great rarity. Most stars explode, collide, or fade away much more quickly, destroying all life around them. We exist in a tiny and incredibly fragile moment in time that could end at any moment. Our safety is an illusion created by a brief lull in an endless cosmic storm. We were wrong to think of the universe as a welcoming home for the development of intelligent and benevolent beings. The viewer must feel this deep connection between a distant star and their own quiet life. Your plans for the future, your career, and your dreams depend on the stability of physical constants. If the Hubble constant behaves erratically, then tomorrow the very space beneath you may begin to change. We have grown accustomed to the reliability of the laws of nature, just as we take for granted that the warm sun will rise in the morning. But Methuselah whispers to us from the darkness that this reliability is merely a temporary and random coincidence. We live on a powder keg, whose fuse has long been burning slowly in a vacuum. This invisible threat hangs over each of us, even as we drink our morning coffee or head to work. We build massive metropolises, and plan to colonize other planets, completely unaware of the basic rules of the game. Our science strides forward proudly, but the foundation beneath its feet is beginning to tremble treacherously. Any new anomaly like this ancient star could turn conventional physics upside down. We are completely at the mercy of forces that cannot be measured or controlled in any way. We can only hope that this cosmic mechanism does not break down completely in our lifetime. Imagine you are on a ship sailing through thick fog along an unknown route. You don't know when the voyage began or how far the shore of salvation lies. You look at the instruments, but they display contradictory and utterly meaningless numbers. And then you notice an ancient artifact on the deck, one that is clearly older than the ship itself. This realization should make you break out in a cold sweat and wish to wake up from this dream immediately. But this is no dream. It is modern astrophysics in its most honest and unvarnished form. Scientists often speak of the fine-tuning of the universe that allowed us to come into being. The slightest change in the strength of nuclear interactions, and stars would never have ignited in the void. Methuselah shows that this fine-tuning may be a far stranger and more artificial thing. Perhaps the parameters of the world were adjusted on the fly to save the system from inevitable collapse. We see the result of a grand engineering feat, but we understand neither the goals nor the identity of the engineer himself. This makes us feel like lab mice in a cage, whose scale we cannot even imagine. If civilizations were bound to emerge everywhere, why do we see only a deathly silence? Methuselah's paradox may be the key to unraveling this great filter that kills all life. Perhaps the universe is so unstable in its basic parameters that life is a software bug. We are a bug in the system that accidentally slipped through the filter of time and space. And sooner or later, the system will notice this inconsistency and perform a routine memory wipe. This thought fills our everyday with deep existential anxiety and anticipation of the end. Such a scenario reduces our entire history to a brief and random flash of a spark in the pitch-black night. All great discoveries, works of art, and scientific breakthroughs lose their original meaning. If we are merely a software glitch, then our existence has no higher purpose or destiny. We are simply waiting for the moment when an unknown programmer presses the reset button on this entire strange world. And the most terrifying thing here is that we have absolutely no way of influencing the final decision. All we can do is gaze at the stars and wonder when exactly the light will go out forever. We were mistaken in thinking we understood the history of our origins, from the first atoms to the mind. Every time we revise Methuselah's age, we rewrite our own biography as a species. We are the children of a universe that itself does not know how old it really is. Our family tree has its roots in a void where the familiar laws of logic and time do not apply. We are alone in our ignorance, and this is the most terrifying discovery one can make while looking through a telescope. The darkness outside the window is not merely vast, it is utterly incomprehensible to our feeble and limited minds. In the next chapter, we'll examine the conclusion of this story and what it means for each of us. You'll see why Methuselah's problem was never truly resolved. We'll discuss how this changes our attitude toward reality and toward ourselves. Prepare for a philosophical conclusion that will leave you face to face with your deepest fears. We are entering the home stretch of this journey to the origins of time and beyond. The future of humanity may turn out to be a dead end, but we have a duty to know the truth about this world. The problem of the Methuselah star has never received a definitive and elegant solution. Despite all the refinements of modern technology, questions regarding the object's age remain open and painful. We have merely smoothed out the rough edges a bit, But the very essence of the paradox continues to torment modern science. It resembles a chronic illness that doctors have learned only to temporarily suppress with pills. But the cause of the ailment lies deep within and is ready to resurface at any moment with renewed force. We have found ourselves in an intellectual impasse from which there is no direct and clear way out. Scientists continue to hold endless conferences and write thousands of pages of complex scientific papers. They argue until they are hoarse, trying to defend their fragile theories against ruthless new facts. However, every new observation only adds even more unknown variables to this broken equation. It is becoming increasingly difficult to remain calm when the basic laws of physics refuse to work in practice. The scientific community is slowly realizing that we have reached an invisible wall of our own capabilities. And we certainly won't be able to climb over this wall using current technologies. This impasse tells us something important about the very nature of human understanding of the world. We have reached a limit beyond which our old methods of logic and observation cease to work. Perhaps the universe is specifically designed to hide its most important and secret mysteries. It is a kind of event horizon for our minds, one we cannot cross. We are banging our heads against a transparent glass wall, trying to break out of the cramped room of our limited perceptions. And every such blow only confirms our helplessness in the face of true infinity. Nature seems to mock our pitiful attempts to measure its true scale. As soon as we invent a more advanced telescope, the cosmos immediately throws a new riddle our way. It's like a game of cat and mouse, where humanity will always be the weak and blind mouse. We are allowed to know only what does not threaten the integrity of the overall design of this vast mechanism. As soon as we get close to the very foundations, reality begins to distort and confuse all our plans. We are punished for our curiosity by the impossibility of seeing the whole picture of the universe. The viewer must understand. Reality is not obligated to be logical or comprehensible to human beings. We are merely biological machines, honed by evolution for survival on Earth. Our brains are adapted to hunt prey and seek shelter, not to understand the workings of time. We are trying to use a stone axe to repair the universe's most complex quantum computer. It is no surprise that we end up with such strange and contradictory results as Methuselah's age. We simply do not have the right tools to grasp the full picture. If the universe is a system failure, then we are living inside a colossal and terrifying mistake. All our laws of physics may turn out to be nothing more than local rules in a tiny corner of the matrix. Beyond the limits of our perception, there may be worlds where time flows backward or does not exist at all. Methuselah is a tiny hole in the curtain through which we have glimpsed the true abyss. And what we saw there should force us to seriously reevaluate all our life values. We waste our lives on trivialities while standing on the edge of an abyss of unimaginable scale. Everyday worries seem utterly ridiculous against the backdrop of these colossal cosmic processes. We fret over petty quarrels or domestic troubles, while the very foundations of the universe crumble right above us. This illusion of the importance of our problems helps our psyche from going mad at the realization of our own insignificance. But the moment we pause to contemplate infinity, this protective barrier instantly crumbles to dust. We are left alone with a terrifying void that is utterly indifferent to our fates. And it is becoming increasingly difficult to hide from this oppressive feeling within the comforts of modern civilization. What if humanity's future lies not in expansion toward the stars, but in a slow fading into ignorance? We may never know the truth about the Big Bang or the true age of our shared home. We are doomed to endlessly argue over numbers that will never coalesce into a single coherent picture. This is an existential defeat that is hard for our proud and ambitious species to accept. We are used to conquering nature, But space is a whole different level of challenge and responsibility. Here, our victories look like children playing in a sandbox against the backdrop of a giant hurricane. Our spacecraft are capable of reaching only the neighboring planets of our modest solar system. We take pride in these steps, but on the scale of the universe, this isn't even stepping outside our own front door. Perhaps we will remain prisoners of our own star system, locked in quarantine because of our ignorance. The limitations of the speed of light will not allow us to personally verify theories at the far reaches of the galaxy. We are destined to forever gaze at distorted projections of light, trying to guess the true state of affairs. And this awareness of our own limitations is the bitterest pill for modern science to swallow. We were wrong to believe that science is a direct path to absolute light and truth. Sometimes science is a path into an even deeper and more terrifying darkness of the unknown. Methuselah has shown us that the more we know, the less we actually understand. Every new telescope only increases the number of mysteries, rather than providing the long-awaited answers. We are drowning in an ocean of data, losing sight of the very meaning of our great quest. Reality slips away from us, leaving only the cold whisper of the stars in the night silence. Look at your hands and think about how the atoms in them were born in the depths of such stars. We are part of this great anomaly we call our universe and our home. Within each of us lives a fragment of that very paradox we see in Methuselah. We are made of matter that, according to our old formulas, should not exist. This makes our lives all the more precious and, at the same time, terrifying in their randomness. We are sparks of reason in a void that does not understand its own laws or purposes. The blood in our veins contains iron forged in the death throes of ancient giants. Our breath is made possible by oxygen released into space billions of years ago. We are literally woven from contradictions and cosmic dust that defies all conceivable chronologies. Recognizing this connection makes every person a living monument to the universe's great mistakes. We carry within us the entire history of the cosmos, with all its unsolved mysteries and blank spots. And perhaps it is within us that the answer to the paradox we so desperately seek in the heavens lies hidden. In the end, we must admit, the universe is far stranger than any of our wildest theories. We can either ignore this fact or learn to live with this constant sense of mystery. Methuselah will continue his flight through space, unconcerned with our arguments and fears. It was here before us, and will most likely remain after the last human has vanished. Its light is an eternal question to which we may never have a worthy answer. And in this silence of the stars lies the deepest philosophy of our existence. We have reached the end of our journey, but this is only the beginning of your own reflection. The world is not what it seems at first glance through the lenses of ordinary glasses. It is full of glitches, anomalies, and things that challenge your very common sense. Do not fear this sense of unease. It is a sign that you have begun to truly see. We live in an age of great doubt, and this is the most fascinating time for the human mind. Cherish your spark of curiosity, for only it illuminates our path in this endless darkness. Remember Methuselah the next time you look up at the starry night sky. There, among billions of lights, lurk those who are older than time and space itself. We are but a fleeting moment in their endless and incomprehensible dance of eternity in the vacuum. Our story is just beginning, and who knows what other surprises the cosmos has in store for us? Reality awaits an explorer, ready to accept it for what it truly is. Stay with us, for there are still many things ahead that will change your view of the world.